All right, this is a response to ChrisTheTruckDriver's video, Socialized Medicine is Real Reform, or whatever the hell he called it. When I first watched this video, I made a simple response saying that he didn't use logic in the response section, and he just said something like, glad you liked it. So when I thought about it, I decided, okay, I will make a video and correct things that Chris says, and I want to try to make this video short, so I'm going to try to go through this very quickly. First, I'd like to at least tell Chris that I at least respect the fact that he went and got out statistics. Usually when I argue with people about healthcare, they'll use the argument of, oh, well, I've never faced a problem in my system, so that means my system is fine. Chris actually threw some effort into his argument, and he went out and got statistics from an organization whose name is too long to remember. Um, so I commend him for that. However, Chris isn't interpreting the statistics correctly. And he lost a lot of credibility in my eyes when he threw out a key statistic that he didn't want you to know, which I'll include in this response. So first, I'll state that statistic that Chris threw out. He states in his video that he doesn't want to give you the stat on doctors per capita per country because he says that it's not relevant or something along those lines. And it's very relevant, of course. He doesn't give it, so I'll give you the statistic. America has 2.4 doctors per every 1,000 people. Canada has 2.2 doctors per every 1,000 people, and the UK is less than that. I can't remember what it was. But that would lend support towards the idea that socialized medicine encourages people not to become doctors, okay? Because they don't want to get paid poorly, or they highly regulate. Like in Canada, they make it very hard to get into medical school because they have many regulations and make it very expensive and limit the amount of people that can go in. And many people like me would say this logically leads to a shortage of doctors, which is true. In Canada, at least, they're going to have a lot of doctor problems by 2015. But Chris doesn't include this, and again, don't know why, other than any other reason that he doesn't want you to know it. But I'm going to go through a couple of Chris's key stats. And the first one he shows is the mortality rates in countries. I'd say this is an important statistic, but again, Chris is making a very broad assumption here, which I don't believe is correct. Chris is essentially arguing that because the U.S. mortality rate is higher, you only live to be like 79, I think, here, 78, whereas in Canada you'll live to be 82 or something. Chris makes the argument, is essentially making the argument this is entirely based on healthcare, and that's incorrect. So, Chris, I hope you do realize that numerous factors play a part in how long you live. The ones that I can name off the top of my head: socioeconomic background and economic background, of course, how much money you make plays a role. I would argue that certain cultural practices and religion make a role, but the most important, I would argue, is geography and environment can make a role. Number one, there are certain countries in the United States that are very polluted, and I would argue that in a city like Los Angeles, you probably will tend to live less. In a city like mine in Chicago, where you have a greater tendency to get murdered, that probably affects how long you will live. And everyone knows in America we have a larger propensity to murder, whether that's from our Second Amendment rights or not, is relevant in this argument. But I'm simply saying is that people also tend to be more violent in the United States, and you have a better chance of getting murdered or violently attacked or something. Chris does try to blow off one argument, though. He points out. He will point out the smokers and drinkers argument. I think he only put that in his video because he himself is a smoker, as is painfully obvious in his video. But he doesn't include the obesity one. And if you look up the obesity rate for countries that tend to have the most obese people, guess who's number 5 on that list? We are. Okay, the next video, or the next person, I think they're number 6 actually. The next country that comes in with major socialized medicine is Canada at number 15. That will have more deaths resulting from obesity. So we are one of the most obese nations, and that I would argue is also a major problem in how long we live. But I'm simply pointing out is that from this statistic, Chris is trying to make you believe that healthcare is essentially the only thing that plays a part in how long you live. And I don't deny that it plays a part in it, but I don't believe it plays the only part. And I think that he's interpreting statistics very narrowly from one thing that can affect them. And then the other problem I have with this video is that he goes to the end because he's trying to show that the United States can save money, and he shows the old argument that yes, we spend more on GDP, more of our GDP, I think 15% compared to Canada, that will spend like 10% on total healthcare costs, and he argues that you can save money in socialized systems. Well, I don't deny that they're saving money. I don't believe it's coming from better healthcare. Okay, and again, here's the problem that I have with this statistic, which I think makes it fall apart, is the fact that in a country like Canada, where I stated at the beginning of this video that they do have less doctors, that Chris didn't want you to know, I don't understand how, if they're spending less money per person, but they have less doctors, it tells me they're doing something to save money. Okay, and they can do a number of things. And I would make a large guess to say that they're denying care, they're denying surgery, people are dying while they're waiting in line, or they can do what we do in the United States with the Medicare system, is simply not reimburse doctors the entire amount of money and tell them what we're going to pay. Like in Medicare, the doctor will only get reimbursed about 60% for the surgery, and it's on the doctor to pay for the rest of it, and they essentially will charge people with insurance more because insurance pays for more of a surgery than Medicare will. And I'd say it's a combination of things that happens, and I'd say this truly exists in England, because everyone has heard of NICE and what NICE does, and liberals like Chris, I'm sure, will tell you that there's no problem with NICE and that it's a cool logical thing. But what an organization or the NICE board will do is they'll try to determine how long you'll live if you receive a surgery, and if they feel that the state is not better off from you receiving the surgery, they simply won't grant you the surgery, and they'll say that's making a logical choice. I would say it's denying the individual the right to live, and to have a choice over their health care. But I'd say what I'm saying is that these are many practices that these countries can do to save money. So Chris will show you that the United States spends 15% of its GDP on healthcare, and Canada spends 10%, and that this is apparently all resulting from better healthcare. And I don't believe it does. I believe that they're losing doctors are losing money along the way in order to pay for it, or someone's getting screwed with their surgery to pay for it. Which Chris doesn't explain. And I'd say the overall idea that Chris is proposing in this video really is hysterical. I'd say I don't understand how a system that essentially encourages people to use the systems as much as they want, no matter how much it costs, saves money. Okay, that really doesn't follow in these systems. And I know people will argue preventive care. Well, when there's a fucking line like in the UK where you have to wait 16 weeks to see a doctor, where a minor condition can then become serious, you're not really saving any money here. And of course, Chris doesn't mention that. And Chris, I want to make one comment in general. I haven't watched a great deal of your videos, but I noticed that you do a lot of comments on religion, and there's too many people on YouTube commenting on religion, for me to want to get involved in it. But I find it kind of funny, Chris, that I know your stance on it. You argue against religion and the idea of God and stuff like that. But I find it funny how someone like you can use logic to apparently disprove the idea of God, but when it comes to logical economics, you don't use logic at all. You throw it out the fucking window. So just a general comment on that. I don't understand how you can, do that in one area and abandon it in another, and, use it all the time, or don't use it. It seems pretty clear to me that you shouldn't kind of half-ass your arguments in different areas just to make them sound credible. But anyway, this was just a very quick response to Chris's video, because again, I believe he's misinterpreting. And I'd say again, it's good that he went out and got statistics, but I believe he's not interpreting them correctly, and he left out a key one that he just really didn't want you to know. And I'd say if again, I'm not going to go into the system of how I think healthcare should be reformed. I've already put out videos on that, which I'm sure Chris wouldn't agree with. But anyway, this is just a response to Chris's video, because I don't believe he's interpreting his stats correctly, and I just wanted to respond to one of his videos to correct it. So, yeah.